Episode 2. Anything short of a blow to the head. And these are some weird titles. And it's your boy Icon with another TV review for you going over that warrior. So, in this particular episode, the Secret Service is in town and they're tracking the plates. They're actually tracking down the plates that Hassam and Young Jun and Chow and everybody found, at that Doc's place. Well, the Secret Service guy, like, he don't take no shit. So he's already chopping off dudes' hands, and because he works for the government, like the Treasury of all places. So he's doing every single thing he can possible to try to get them damn plates back. Otherwise, it's his ass, which is on the line. Hassam and the gang, they're trying to figure out how to print this money. They even stole the printing press, like they got all the plates and everything, but they're fucking up because they don't know how to do it because they're not printers. So this brings us back to the first episode where they rolled up on the printing family, and they were trying to get protection money out of them. And like I said before, like the shot that they had was lingering on the kids a little bit too much. So of course, what happens is Hassam ends up going down to the printing place and he talks to them to see if they can help with the printing of the money. So the father says no. He's just like, I don't want to have any. He said, oh, we don't know how to do it, and my son doesn't know how to do it. We're still new and blah blah blah. Basically, they don't want nothing to do with the shit. So Hassam is just like whatever, and he leaves. But he tells them, he's like, if you agree to do this for me, he said that I can actually clear your debt and you won't have to worry about the protection or anything anymore. But then the dad is like, no, I'm not going to do it. So Hassam walks away. Now this brings in the daughter because again, the guy had a son and he had a daughter. The daughter ends up going to Hassam on her family's behalf. And she tells him that she'll print the money for them as long as they resolve her family of all of their debt and there's no more protection racket. The printer's daughter, she got a little attitude, she's a little snappy, and but she's good at what she does. She approaches Azam and she's just like, she tells Young Jun, she said that I'll print your money, your blood money for you as long as you resolve my family's debt. Young Jun, he says okay, and then she gets to work and she prints that money. And she actually does a very good job of it too, because she prints it and they can't even tell the difference. So they're in business, and I guess her father is off limits until they print as much money as they possibly can print. The third guy, I forgot his name, but he's the one he's the knife guy, because it's Young Jun, it's Hassam, and then it's the other guy. I don't want to call him the gay guy, but he's the one. Him and Young Jun, they went to a bar, and I guess there was another gay Chinese man who was performing at this bar. He was singing, and obviously this dude, he has a thing for him. I mean, back then, I'm pretty sure there weren't many people that were coming out, as gay or lesbian back then. So when you found that one person, that was a very rare thing. So the two of them exchange looks back and forth or whatever. I don't know what this has to do with the overall plot. I don't know if this new character is a plant somehow, if he secretly works for some bigger storyline, or is he just a random love interest they threw just to give this guy something to do. But anyway, the two of them are flirting back and forth, and he has something to do. Otoye, she's still talking to Hassam. She's letting him know that she might end up going to the wine yard for good to be with her white lady. And he said that, well, you deserve it, because he was like, how's your shoulder? Are you going to pick up a sword again? And she said she doesn't know. Her girlfriend ended up getting a visit from one of her higher up friends. So this businessman, that she's familiar with, he approached her on her wine yard, and he basically told her he has a railroad company that's in charge. He builds railroads, he builds tracks. His company, they got a government contract to build a railroad that goes through California. But he said, but the problem is your wine yard is right smack in the middle of where the government wants to build the railroad. And then she was like, well, just tell the motherfuckers to pick a new spot. But he said that, because it's a government mandate, he said that they're trying to buy you out now. He's like, we want to pay you as much as we can pay you a fair market price, because what's going to happen is the government is eventually going to take this from you and they're going to give you peanuts, and then you won't be able to afford anything. So she stands her ground and she's just like, I ain't selling shit, and get the hell off my property. So the guy gets off his, so as the guy leaves, his boy is just like, so what are we going to do? And he's like, don't worry, she'll come around. And then he peeks over and sees her and Otoye hugged up together. And I'm pretty sure he knows that she has a thing for women, because I guess he used to know her husband or whatever. So he just looked on, and then he just like, haha, and then he walked away. Buckley's trying to retain his mayoral position. He's actually running up against another guy. And the guy that he's running up against has a family. He's a family man, he smiles, apparently he's handsome. All the ladies love him, and everybody, all the town people love him. And he said he's gonna bring San Francisco back to the working man's family, and then he gets all the applause. Buckley, he's not a people person. And his assistant told him, he said, listen, if you want to win this election, you got to actually get out there with the people and interact with the people. Apparently he's having PTSD from his time back when he served in the army, because being around large groups of people makes him hyperventilate. It gives him anxiety. Anxiety was a thing back then. It gives him anxiety. He doesn't know what to do. But then, like, this other lady pops up out of nowhere, and then she just talks to him softly and says that, she's working with a different part of the government trying to get some bill passed or something. But, she fixes his tie, spruces up his jacket. She's very, like, consoling to him. And you can see him slowly starting to let his guard down with this lady. I don't know if this lady is a plant either, if she actually really does like him, or if she has another agenda. But whatever her agenda is, Buckley falling for a hook, line, and sucker. Now, Mai Ling, one thing I didn't mention in the first episode, Mai Ling is actually acquiring gang assets. She's going around San Francisco to every single Chinese gang that she can find, and she's swallowing up those gangs to work for the Long Z. She's slowly building an army of people, but the thing is, when she brings your gang into the Long Z, she strips them of their gang name and they become Long Z. So she's basically trying to make the Long Z gang the biggest gang possible, I guess, to take down Young Jun and his gang eventually, because that's going to be the last one on the map. There's a couple of people, like, they don't like the idea of working for a woman. So then, Mai Ling sent her boyfriend down to this one person. She's just like, oh, go down there and see if you can get him, to join our tong. And then he was just like, well, nah. He's like, those people, they don't have honor. Like, they're loose cannons. And she's like, well, just take the meeting. If you decide that they're not worthy, then we'll deal with it. So the boyfriend goes down there. He has the meeting, and the guy flat out told him, he was just like, yo, I don't want to work for that bitch. And then he tried to kill him. Now, there was one gang specifically that Mai Ling was able to bring into the fold, and that specific gang had a leader, and that leader is friends with Mai Ling's boyfriend. The two of them were actually drinking together. They were having a conversation. They were talking, and he's counseling him because he felt that he should have been the leader of the Long Z, because he's not really feeling Mai Ling either, but he's not dumb enough to challenge her while she's sitting in the chair. And he even provided Mai Ling with counsel too. Like, he was just talking to her about, like, oh, just be patient, with your brother's tongue, and eventually, like, they'll burn themselves out. And she's like, well, patience isn't my virtue and everything. So, I don't know, he a little tricky. And there's still the question of the guy that broke out of prison, the swordsman, the hatchet man. Like, like, I don't know, like, there's a lot of people that feel like plants, and they could be plants for, like, for the hatchet man, like all those people. But we'll see. Mai Ling, she ended up going to hang out with the white folks again. She started to turn into a Western woman, and then she had tea with all the white women. She told them her story. They were all hanging, clutching their pearls and hanging on to her story with every little word. And then the woman that invited her to the party gave her a dress, and now she's all like, oh my God, I can't accept this. And then she's just like, it's a dress, and you'll never know when you have to come to a party. This woman is planning something. I understand that she's taken in with her story. I understand that she finds her fascinating. She finds Mai Ling beautiful, but she's being overly helpful. She's just like, here, take a dress, come to my party, come to my house, have some tea. Like, this woman has an agenda. For the love of God, I hope her agenda is a positive one, because if she ends up playing Mai Ling or, like, making her out to look stupid somehow, she gonna slay, like, Mai Ling gonna kill this bitch. So let's just pray that Karen over here know what she doing. Bill's still trying to get his family back. He can't get his family back. His wife did kiss him on the cheek, and the father, well, that was either his father-in-law or his brother-in-law. He was just like, why don't you just quit the force, Bill, and come live, like, come work for me at the factory. And then Bill said he'd think about it. Leary, now, because Leary had beat up that last dude and got him to lower the prices for that one guy's factory, now all the politicians in the town, they're using Leary basically as hired muscle. Because there was this one guy, he's like, look, I own a factory. My competitor, he's doing dastardly, like, malpractice. He's cheating under the table to slit my throat and to get all the money for himself. So he said that, listen, I can hire the Irishman, I can hire the working man, but I need you to go to my competitor and get him to play fair. And then that's when Larry was like, so you just want me to rough him up like I'm some sort of thug? And then he was just like, I just want you to put us on an even playing field so I can hire the working man. So now Larry's got some things to think about. He's back at his bar, he's talking to Bill, and then while he's talking to Bill, he was thinking about earlier, because he ended up getting 20 guys, like 20 of the Irishmen, some jobs at this one specific factory. But there were two guys who had a problem, and they were causing issues for the factory workers and for the factory owner because they didn't want to work alongside the Chinese. So then Larry got mad. He fired both of them, and he was like, anybody that doesn't want to work, if you don't want the job that I give you, he's like, I gladly give it to somebody else, and away with you. So he actually has the power to fire people because he's working. He's the head of the working man's class. So he fired those guys because they didn't, because they were fucking around, didn't want the job. And he's like, if anybody has a problem with what I just did, you know where to find me. So the two guys that he fired go down to the bar and they challenge him to a fight because they said, yeah, we're not happy and we know where to find you, Bill. So he was just just like, so why don't you and your brother come on? And he whooped both their asses. The trigger word was, one of the guys was just like, oh, he was like, are you gonna fight me, Leary, or are you afraid I'm gonna kick your arse, just like, just like the Chinaman did? And that set him off. So he beat up both him and his brother. And then after that, he bought him a pint, and he bought him around, and then he went on about his business. And then finally, Richard, the last character of the evening, he's still wanted in Georgia for the murder of his cousins from back in the day. And bounty hunters are coming to coming to his girlfriend's bar. They're finding him, and they're trying to take him, back to Georgia. Both he and his girlfriend fought off these two specific people, and they killed him. And then she called her brother, her ex. Well, he's still her brother, because she was married to this one guy. Her husband died, and now she works at her brother-in-law's bar. So she called her brother-in-law, and then her brother-in-law took the bodies and gave them to a guy that does something with bodies for a certain price. And then that's when he walked over to Richard, and he was just like, oh, I don't appreciate you being around my sister-in-law. And he was just like, what happens if a colored girl gets charged for shooting a white man? And he was basically all upset, because he was just like, yo, he's like I don't like you, I don't want you around her, I don't want you around my bar. And then he was just like, oh, don't worry. He was like, you'll learn to love me or whatever, because I'm the white man. But then after that, when the brother-in-law went into the pockets of the two guys that died, the two bounty hunters, he saw the reward wanted poster that says how much it costs if you bring Richard in and bring him to Georgia. So now Richard's talking to his girlfriend, and he's just like, we got to come up with something. And then she's just like, oh, but there's no work for a colored girl anywhere but San Francisco. And, she don't want to leave. But he wants to leave. She don't want to leave. The Secret Service guy ends up rolling up on Richard, and he's just like, look, I'm trying to track down these printing press. I'm trying to track down this counterfeit money. I need you to rejoin the force. He said, I'll baptize you. He said, I'll deputize you as a federal officer. Come back to the force. Help me bring back the plates so we can start printing some real money and bring these criminals to justice. And then Richard was like, well, what's in it for me? And then he said, well, if you do this for me, I'll make your Georgia situation go away. So now, because Richard sees that as his opportunity to clear his name and for him and his colored girlfriend to have a good life, he ended up rejoining the force. He ended up rejoining the force from a federal standpoint. And now he's a federal officer, which is going to piss Bill off, because Bill's whole thing was like, I asked you to rejoin the force. You told me no. He's like, but you tell the federal government, yeah. Because he's going to make his problems go away just like that. The new chief of police, he's running through Chinatown. He's killing people. He's killing families. He's beating up people. He's closing shop, closing businesses. Chinatown is basically suffering like under this guy's rule. But now we got to worry about him and the Secret Service. So there's two whole situations happening. Osama's out here printing fake money, and that's how the episode ended. And thank you for tuning in. So this is getting interesting, because, like I said, the new characters that are being brought into the show is making it interesting, because the printer's daughter, her sassy attitude, like, she's being brought in, like, she's an interesting character. The Secret Service guy coming in, like, that's interesting. And then, like, the new police chief from New York. But my whole thing is, where's the Hatchet Man? Like, where's the Hatchet Man? Like, where does he fit into all this? And then, for the love of God, because homegirl said, to tell the government to shove it as far as trying to take her wine land is concerned, like, we all know what's about to happen with that. So share your questions, comments, and or concerns down below as we conclude Warrior Episode 2. Check out my other reviews on my YouTube channel, because I got the season finale of Superman and or Lois on the channel. I got Marvel's Invasion, and like I said, I'm still going to do Batman Doom. Batman Doom's on the list, y'all. And when Batman Doom comes out, we'll continue to roll on it and talk about that too. Also, check out my YouTube channel, because we're still going live with that Street Fighter 6. So that was it, guys. So signing off for episode 2. I will see you on episode 3. And until then, I'm out this.